Now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
Well, what a night it was last night. 5:06, it's O'Connor and Company here on this very busy Wednesday morning. They're always busy. I should just stop saying it, Julie Gunlock, because every day is busy. Good morning, Julie Gunlock. Are you just getting, were you up all night watching the returns?
I was not. Good morning.
It was not a good night for the election denier last night. That old doddering fool just looked like just speaking gibberish and everything at that big rally. I'm, of course, talking about Joe Biden.
Hello, Virginia. And the real governor, Terry McAuliffe.
What is that?
Good God.
Either he thinks that it's, 12 years ago, or he's an election denier. Either way, insurrectionist. Coming up at 6:05, Denisha Allen, American Federation for Children, will join us. 6:35, Cal Thomas. 7:05, Tommy Pigott. Now, he's RNC Director of Strategic Communications. I got a lot of questions for him going forward here with this RNC primary process. 7:35, Sean Spicer will give his observations on the New Hampshire primary. And then at 8:35, John Androsik, our friend. Yay. Fight for Fighting. I love his music. I love his songs. He's a good friend, and he's got a brand new song here about the events in Israel on October 7th. And a lot of this song that he has composed is about the embarrassing and terrifying reaction from the American left, really about the international left. So we're going to talk about that song and John Androsik's art and how he uses his talent for political purposes now. Not all the time, but in really relevant ways. So that's all coming up. But last night, setting aside the election denier, appearing in New Hampshire.
And the real governor, Terry McAuliffe.
Can they, oh, he was just kidding. Can they, on any sort of firm standing now, if Trump says something about the 2020 election, can they be, well, I mean, they will not be called out, of course.
No, of course.
It's different when he does it.
But are these the jokes? I mean, I'm just trying to.
Yeah, where's the humor there?
Really?
Yeah.
The real, right. Okay. The parent-hating ex-governor. There we go.
Was soundly defeated by a political upstart who'd never run for any election before. Right. It's like, okay.
Who has higher approvals than him?
By the way, and another reminder, we're going to get to the New Hampshire primary. Just cool your heels. I'm not talking to Julie. I'm talking to you. You, right there. Yes, you, waking up right now. We'll get there. But this is a perfect reminder, too, about how because Nikki Haley's message right now to the Republican Party is they hate Trump so much. She actually put a mailer out, or shouldn't say her, one of the multi-gajillion-dollar super PACs supporting her, put out a mailer in Virginia who cited one of the reasons why we have to vote for Nikki Haley is because the biased liberal media, these are the words they used actually, the biased liberal media hates Trump. Oh, because, if you're a real conservative Republican, you're going to immediately jump through the hoop that the biased liberal media has set up for you, right? But listen, this is a message that resonates. The American people hate Trump so much that we've got to find somebody that they will like Nikki Haley. Well, look at what Joe Biden just did last night in Virginia.
And the real governor, Terry McAuliffe.
See, they hate Glenn Youngkin just as much.
That's right. It doesn't matter who it is.
I'm sorry. I've played this game before when we nominated Mitt Romney, when we nominated John McCain. Nominate the Republican that the media will be nice to. Nominate the Republican that Democrats like, who can appeal to Democrats and independents. And look what happens.
Yeah, do yourself a favor and go back and look at Romney making maybe not the most wise comment about women in binders, and see the freak out that happened in the media. You're absolutely right. It doesn't matter. They hate all Republicans.
All right. Last night, it did, as the prophetic Nikki Haley suggested a week ago, it did turn into a two-person race. It was Donald Trump versus Nikki Haley. Donald Trump prevailed, but it wasn't nearly as big a victory as he would have expected and many observers. I thought he was going to get up to 58, 59% and close to 60. That's what the last polls showed. Instead, the final account as of now, as of where we're looking at it at this moment, is Donald Trump with 54.55%. This is according to the Associated Press, last updated 10 minutes ago. Donald Trump with 54.5%, Nikki Haley with 43.2%. Next closest was Ron DeSantis, who, of course, dropped out of the race on Sunday with just under 1% of the vote. So he won by about 9 points, Donald Trump did. And it was just the two choices, Nikki Haley and Donald Trump. Now, there's a lot of reasons why Nikki Haley did well, mostly having nothing to do with registered Republicans, and we'll get into that detail in a moment. But just, I don't think people come here for cheerleading. I don't think people come here for a pep rally. If I had to vote today, Donald Trump would be my choice in the Republican nomination process. And I think that he's the strongest candidate, and I think that he's the candidate that has the most backing of the Republican Party. But isolating just yesterday's results in New Hampshire, I don't think this was a great victory for Donald Trump. It was a victory, make no bones about it. But compare it to 2016. In 2016, he won by 20 points.
Right. Yes.
Last night he won by under 10 points.
Okay, but of that 46.1% that went for Haley, how many were Democrats? And go ahead. I just think I think she, and you know, I've listened to other political commentators say, well, you know, heaven forbid we bring Democrats into the party. No. This was Democrats trying to, you know, sort of mess it up and show a bigger showing for Haley. This wasn't, they're convinced by Haley's, you know, great message.
Correct.
So
You're 100% correct. I want to. The reason I hesitated there on that because I want to take a little bit of time to unpack this myth.
Sure.
Because you're going to see fact checks all over the place. Donald Trump said, "Well, yeah, Nikki Haley got a lot of Democrat votes today." And now you're going to see, you know, USA Today already has the fact check. Donald Trump lies about Democrats. Democrats can't vote in this. So let me give you all the facts here so everybody knows what happened. It is a fact that as of October, you had to register one of three ways in New Hampshire. You had to register as a Republican, as a Democrat, or as an undeclared. If you registered as a Republican in October, then you could only vote in the Republican primary. If you registered as a Democrat in October, then you could only vote in the Democrat primary. But if you registered as undeclared, then you could make that choice yesterday. So it is true, and it is also not true, that Democrats supported Nikki Haley. They were Democrats, but they were registered as undeclared.
Yeah.
Okay? So I just want to make sure that everybody gets that.
Right. And I think David Marcus, who came on earlier in the week, was telling us, you know, it wasn't like you could just decide that morning as a registered Democrat and then go vote for Haley. But I do think that we have a Democrat Party who's willing to put the former president in jail. I suspect they had some movements up there getting some, you know, undeclared registrants who were ready to put in for Haley or DeSantis or whoever the alternative to Trump was.
It goes all the way back to Operation Chaos.
Yes.
Started by Rush Limbaugh back in 2008, which, by the way, didn't really end up great because it got us Barack Obama. All right. We'll unpack this a little bit more. You'll hear from the voters themselves who actually admitted on open camera that, oh, yeah, I'm just voting for Nikki Haley to hurt Donald Trump, and there's no way I would vote for her in the general election. Absolutely relevant, absolutely true. Yet at the same time, Nikki Haley has a narrative coming out of this election, and it will at least give her oxygen for a few more of these primaries and caucuses. Again, I'm not saying I want her to. I think I've been pretty clear about my disdain for her campaign right now. But we have to call facts facts. And the fact is she does have a narrative, and it will give her oxygen. And even more importantly, she'll continue to get multi-millions of dollars from those left-wing donors that she keeps getting money from. We'll continue to unpack New Hampshire for you in a moment. First, it's 5:15.
WMAL.
Making sense of the news.
Live
from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios.
Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
WMAL. Making sense of the markets. Because generational wealth doesn't build itself. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
Identify as a Democrat, or do you identify as an independent? And here's what we found in this exit poll so far, and I think this jumps right out at you. A minority of voters in this first wave of the exit poll in the Republican primary identify as Republicans. A majority, 53%, identify as either independents, 45%, or, and this is a high number historically, 8% identify as Democrats.
That's Steve Kornacki on MSNBC explaining this and breaking this down. And so when Donald Trump says in his speech last night that Nikki Haley got a huge number of Democrats voting for her, and everyone's fact-checking, he's lying, he's lying, he's lying. Well, it's how people identify themselves. And the more accurate way for Donald Trump to say would be they weren't Republicans, which is 100% true. Yeah. They were not Republicans. She got 70% of the non-Republican vote last night. And as you said, Julie, people will, well, you got to win with independents and Democrats in the general election. Well, if you actually ask the people who were voting, as CNN did, they aren't planning on voting for her.
And why did you vote for Nikki Haley?
It's a vote against Trump. Yeah. I think it would be better to have her against Biden in the elections than it would be Trump and her.
Do you consider yourself generally independent, Republican, or Democrat?
Democrat.
So when you undeclared, you voted for Nikki Haley. If it was Nikki Haley against Joe Biden in a general election, who are you voting for?
Joe Biden.
There you go.
There you go. I love that. I think it would be better to have her against Joe Biden. I wonder why. Yeah.
I'd rather have her running against the candidate that I want. Wow. Now, listen, this is a problem. And when we talk to the spokesperson for the RNC coming up a little later, I want to ask him, why do we keep doing this? Why do states keep doing this and allow people to cross over? Because this is supposed to be about the Republican Party choosing the Republican nominee, and non-Republicans are choosing. That's outrageous.
Yeah.
It's despicable. But so, and again, I just want everyone to understand what I am saying. I understand who voted for Nikki Haley yesterday. I understand why she got a close second. That doesn't change the narrative. We are all grown up enough to know, and we have all watched how this works over the last several decades to know that narrative sometimes outweighs reality. And Nikki Haley can go into South Carolina, go to Nevada, go to the Virgin Islands where she's going to be campaigning today and say, listen, I've got momentum right now. And that narrative sticks, and she's going to get money out of this too. That's a reality, and Trump needs to face the reality, not just say, well, it doesn't matter, it's not real. No. If it's a narrative, it's real.
Yeah. And I mean, I do think Trump needs to be serious about this. His showing in New Hampshire was not as strong. And, you know, he has to take this seriously and not dismiss it as not mattering. I think that optics matter, and I think people see that he didn't, end strong. What I'm interested in, Larry, is South Carolina and what's going to happen there.
Me
and
too.
if that is going to be the final nail. I know we're not done talking about New Hampshire.
Yeah,
but,
no. We can look forward.
I just wonder how much longer Nikki's going to be able to hang on.
One wonders, and it's funny. What one very noteworthy item coming out of New Hampshire is Donald Trump was surrounded by South Carolina politicians.
Yes,
the entire last 5 days there, not just Tim Scott and Lindsey Graham, but high-ranking members of the South Carolina Republican Party. You would assume that Nikki Haley, of all of these candidates, has a machine in South Carolina that she could mobilize.
right.
And she probably does, but does that supersede the high-level power structure that has endorsed Donald Trump? It remains to be seen. I say even Nancy Mace, who is kind of a bit of a squish on certain social issues, certainly aligned with Nikki Haley more on abortion than Donald Trump is. She endorsed Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And she's a South Carolina Republican as well. So, it's a good question about how things shape up for South Carolina. But the point is, if he had won by 20 points,
Yeah.
I don't think South Carolina would even be an issue right now because the money would have dried up. I keep going back to the money. And it's not like Republican voters are supporting her. It's big, big, big money that's mobilized to hurt Donald Trump.
That's right.
And the people
And
behind
it's not
that
all
money,
Republican money.
Oh, not even close.
Right.
Not even close. The most conservative money that's backing Nikki Haley right now, I would describe as libertarian money.
Yes, exactly.
Which sort of goes where it needs to go.
Yes.
To meet its ends. All right. And by the way, as we're looking forward here, you're looking forward to South Carolina. What about a debate? Donald Trump has been saying from the beginning that he will probably eventually debate when it gets down to two people. Well, that's where we are right now. So why does he have an excuse not to debate Nikki Haley, who just came within less than 10 points of him in New Hampshire?
Well, I think that's where South Carolina, I think he's going to hold off as long as he can. I would love to see that debate, frankly. I think it would be quite the show. But I don't think he's going to. There's no reason for him to do it. And I don't think he is, after holding off all this time, I don't think he's going to do it.
We'll ask Sean Spicer about that. He's got very strong feelings about how these debates have been conducted. He's joining us at 7:35. I have two minds. I would love to see it as well. But more importantly, I think this is what I've been saying consistently from the very first debate. The voters deserve to see all the candidates in the debate.
No argument. But...
And the voters deserve to see how Donald Trump can debate right now, because he will be expected to debate should he win the nomination. And I think for the voters' sake, they should be able to, they deserve no less. But we'll see what happens. There's a lot more to unpack today after last night's New Hampshire primary, and you're going to be well informed by the time this morning. I was just previewing John Andrasik's Five for Fighting song, Okay. It's a great song. We're going to talk to John Andrasik coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. But coming up next, we've got a little bit more on the New Hampshire primary and what the primary caucus schedule is looking like going forward. So keep it here. Full coverage of all things politics and pop culture on O'Connor and Company.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington, a Cumulus media station.
Making sense of the news.
News Talk 105.9.
News now.
On 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app.
O'Connor and Company.
5:36 here on O'Connor and Company. Thank you for tuning in here. Yeah, it's going to be busy as we give you results of the New Hampshire primary, our analysis, and also what things are looking going forward in the nomination process. That's still in store for us. Also, we're going to focus on the Democrat race yesterday. That's right, the Democrats had a primary too. I mean, for those Democrats who didn't vote for Nikki Haley. Also coming up at 6:05, Denisha Allen, American Federation for Children. 6:35, Cal Thomas. 7:05, Tommy Pigott. He's a Strategic Communications Director for the RNC. 7:35, Sean Spicer, talking about yesterday's New Hampshire primary. And then 8:35, our friend John Andrasik, Five for Fighting, #1 Billboard singer, songwriter. He's got a brand new song focusing on the events in Gaza on October 7th. That's all coming up. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock.
Good morning.
Good morning. A quick look forward, by the way, just so everybody knows what the schedule is, because we're used to having the South Carolina primary like immediately after the New Hampshire primary, right? It's usually within a week or two. Not this year. The New Hampshire primary is not until February 24th.
You mean the South Carolina primary?
I'm sorry. Thank you. The South Carolina primary. There's a month before the South Carolina primary.
I think I forgot that.
Yeah. It's going to be a while. No, well, you may have been confused because South Carolina is holding the Democrat primary February 3rd. But they're doing, the parties have two different dates in South Carolina. So February 3rd is going to be your South Carolina primary. Now, the next big date for Republicans will be February 8th. On Thursday, February 8th, you've got two caucuses, the Nevada caucus and the U.S. Virgin Islands caucus. They've moved up the Virgin Islands caucus early in the schedule. They wanted to be relevant, and it looks like it worked because, and hear me out here, I know it's like, who cares about the Virgin Islands? Well, unlike any of the other races we've had so far, Iowa, New Hampshire, and the caucus scheduled on the 8th in Nevada, the Virgin Islands will be winner take all.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I believe it's 10 delegates up for grabs. The current delegate breakdown has Trump with 31 and Haley with 16. So if Haley were to win that one, winner take all, she would be within single digits in the delegate count. Now, this all may not make much difference. I don't think it's going to make much difference. But again, I'm giving you two stories here. The reality of what's going on with the math and the schedule and what's going to happen after South Carolina. Then you've got Super Tuesday, all those southern states. I can't see Nikki Haley gaining any kind of momentum to actually shift things. However, there's the reality. And then there's the narrative. And the narrative for Nikki Haley, for the news media, for Democrats, and for a handful of people who fund the Nikki Haley campaign, they've got a real story to tell right now. And especially coming out of next week's, is it next or February 8th? So that's in less than 2 weeks out of the Virgin Islands. Theoretically, she could say, hey, I just won the Virgin Islands, winner take all. I'm within
close.
Single digits of Donald Trump, and if you're Donald Trump, I think you wanted a more resounding victory.
Yeah, and I think if you're Nikki Haley, you need that in order to pull out. She's come this far. Why pull out now? And look,
Oh yeah, people who are calling for Nikki Haley to pull out are ridiculous. She has no reason to get out right now.
Right. But it is, and look, I think you run this sort of Trump gaffe risk the longer this goes on. But Nikki Haley has her share of gaffes as well. But of course, the corporate media is going to be a lot more gentle with Nikki Haley at this point. The gloves are off after if by some miracle she gets the nomination. Gloves are off, and the corporate media will say yes, they'll destroy her. But right now,
and it's a target-rich environment.
But right now, they're going to be very gentle with her. Whereas if Trump, if there's any kind of Trump gaffe, oh my God,
Well, there will be, but that's okay, because actually it endears him to his voters even more. I think. Listen, it's an incredible thing to watch play out before your eyes when you see a media narrative take over reality. But this is the media narrative that they want. Meanwhile, it looks like Joe Biden is acting like he wants Donald Trump. He put out a message last night. It's now clear that Donald Trump will be the Republican nominee. My message to the country is the stakes could not be higher. Our personal freedoms are at stake, from the right to choose to the right to vote. Yeah, we'll get to Biden's day in Northern Virginia about wanting to kill babies. He also thanked the voters of New Hampshire for writing his name in. He said that it was a demonstration of our democratic process.
Oh, right.
They literally put a kibosh on the democratic process in New Hampshire.
Well, and of course he wants Trump. It is all he has. It is all the Democrats have. The whole fear of MAGA and dictatorship and the death of democracy. This is the only thing Biden has.
Yes and no. I mean, I actually think that he does better against Nikki Haley than he does against Donald Trump in the general.
I'm not sure they think so.
But, yeah, I guess not. The polls show that Donald Trump does better against Biden in the general than Nikki Haley does. But Dean Phillips was the runner-up in New Hampshire. He is a Democrat, and he had something very interesting to say on CNN about Trump voters. Take a listen.
We have a crisis of participation. And I got to tell you guys, I went to a Donald Trump rally a couple nights ago. Never been to one. I had an event across the street. I saw the line of people waiting in the cold for hours. And I thought, what the heck? I'm going to be a leader who actually invites people, doesn't condemn them. Met probably 50 Trump people waiting in line. Every single one of them, thoughtful, hospitable, friendly. All of them so frustrated that they feel nobody's listening to them but Donald Trump. A diverse crowd, people who had never been to a Trump event before. My party is completely delusional right now.
Yeah, they are, from the top down. And it's led by Joe Biden, who wants to call all of those very people that Dean Phillips just described as fascists.
Yes.
Fascist, extremists, and insurrectionists.
That is a fascinating little clip from Dean Phillips. And, it's funny. You see these things happen every once in a while, whether it's a journalist or a documentary filmmaker or someone going into these sort of MAGA, spaces and being shocked at how nice everybody is.
Right.
Interesting clip.
Yeah, it sure is. And he did something that most of the people in the media refuse to do, which is actually literally just have a conversation with someone who supports Donald Trump and ask them questions. It is 5:44. It's 5:48 now on O'Connor and Company. I want to get through all of this New Hampshire talk so we can get to the chairman of the Republican Party of Arizona trying to bribe Kari Lake from running. Allegedly. Have you heard that audio?
Yeah, so weird.
It is. It's and like openly talking about, if they find out I did this, they'll probably kill me. It's like, what is going on? That said, there's still more wrap-up here on the New Hampshire primary. We've got much talk with Sean Spicer coming up and a spokesperson for the RNC coming up. Last night on the Fox News coverage, there was a fantastic panel exchange. This starts with Charles Payne, but it also includes Kellyanne Conway and others sparring with Jessica Tarlov, the resident Democrat there. And I want you to hear it because it really does expose what's going on. I feel like we're in a time warp from 8 years ago with all of this talk about who Trump voters are. And this reaffirms what I've been saying forever, that all of the criticism of Donald, when you hear Joe Biden call Trump voters fascists and Trump fascists, the MAGA Republicans, he's talking about you.
Yeah.
He's talking about you. If you vote for or don't vote for Joe Biden and don't vote for who Nancy Pelosi demands you vote for, he's talking about you. Yep. And finally, the people on the Fox panel, this rarely happens, they actually called Jessica Tarlov out on it. Listen.
Dean Phillips talks about this on the trail, and he talks about how Democrats demean MAGA voters. He talked about it with me today, saying that, it's just strange that they're talking about a group of voters like that.
Yeah, and I don't think it's narcissism. I think if you've lived in New York long enough, it's maybe a New York thing. Someone punches you, you punch him back harder. That's why I grew up in Harlem.
Not if the country's at stake, right?
He won. He became president of the United States with that same personality. I don't think that, listen, I think it's worse with Biden calling MAGA. Biden's anger and vitriol and hatred for MAGA is far more worse than President Trump's individual battles with someone who crosses him. That is something that is really detrimental to this country, that the president of the United States despises half of the United States. President Biden, I said earlier today, about a week ago, I had a segment coming up, so I Googled Biden hates MAGA. Nothing but articles after articles after articles. He has expressed hatred for half of the country.
Who's writing those articles?
It doesn't matter. Look
and it's
at
not.
him. Because the bottom line is he says it. He has vitriol for them. And so does MSNBC, and so does CNN, and so does the New York Times. They have vitriol for half of the nation. They don't look at them like fellow Americans, and it's unfortunate. They try to paint them as racist. All the things that they do to their fellow Americans who simply want a safe home, a safe community, for the children to have prosperity. They want the same thing, but they demean them all the time. That's why I think Phillips was so intriguing, because he went to a rally to find out for himself. And guess what? Golly, these are some pretty cool people. They're just like us.
Exactly what.
Yeah, it actually continues a little bit more of it, but right there, it's a great moment there. Thank you. We don't hear it very often on Fox News Channel. Yeah. And I think the word that he was struggling for there is contempt. He kept saying vitriol, but it's contempt.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Contempt.
Well, anyone who shuts up the vocal fry of Jessica Tarlov as my vote, frankly.
Well, hate to break it to you, but we got a little bit more of the fry here. Take a listen.
Black voters, Hispanic voters, college women, Latinos who have moved towards Trump.
Yes.
So it's no longer that people are in these boxes based on what their gender is or what they look like. They appear to want, a safe country, and they appear to want a good economy, regardless of what label they have.
That's completely fine, and I know that the lines have shifted dramatically, but Joe Biden's responsible for a lot of that. You say that he's demeaned half the country. First of all, it's 74 million people that voted for Donald Trump, and he is explicit every time he talks about the MAGA movement to say that this is a subsection of the Republican Party, which is borne out in elections when you see people voting against Donald Trump. And this idea that
but what about the people voting for him? What about the people voting for him? He gives teleprompter speeches. I mean, you have to understand that it's...
but he is talking about insurrectionists. Yes, he is.
No.
Why is he talking about January 6th? And he says
MAGA like it's a swear word, instead of a slogan.
If you get called regularly,
he's the
which
president
Democrats
of the United States.
Thugs,
he's the commander-in-chief.
pedophiles.
Why can't he call the border a crisis while he's denigrating and castigating Americans? No, the voters are talking about that, Jessica.
But
excuse me,
point is about demeaning voters.
The president of the United States, the commander-in-chief, went to Philadelphia a year and a half ago with a Marine posted behind him.
I saw.
And gave a decidedly political speech where he insulted a large part of the country. And I've said many times on this network, and I'll say it again tonight, if people, a lot of people, spend a fraction of the time that they spend obsessing over Donald Trump, the person, learning one thing about the Trump voter, things may be very different. This is Joe Biden's version of Hillary's deplorable and irredeemable.
All right, that's Kellyanne Conway there finishing it up. It's a great segment, and it's honestly, if Fox News had discussions like this more often, I'd probably watch more, and I'm not alone. They should probably think about that, because I really feel it's very rare for someone to step up there and say, these are human beings you're talking about, these voters, and they're Americans, and they have a voice, and they deserve to be heard.
Yeah, I am way past this now, this narrative that all people who support Trump are somehow evil, or, as Jessica was reading that list of offenses there, this has got to stop.
You may be over it, Julie, but as a very wise political analyst in this town said very recently, it's all they've got.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, that was